That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, I have the most exciting announcement of the offseason. If you're a part of the locals community, you already saw this last night, but we have officially released our 2022 Dynasty Research book. This is what I've been working on. I don't even know how long at this point. Over 100 pages of relevant, in-depth Dynasty research, a ton of charts, a ton of tables, a lot of which are going to be looked at in this video today. And of course, we are going to be releasing this Dynasty book the best way possible. You have two different options that you can get this Dynasty research book with. Option one, all you have to do is go to Underdog Fantasy. I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen me drafting on Underdog Fantasy, making player prop videos with Underdog Fantasy, by far and away my favorite place to play. And if you go deposit $10 and it's your first time on Underdog Fantasy, they will match your first deposit. They will send you a copy of our Dynasty research book. And at the same time, you will get a month free of our locals content. That's exclusive rankings. That's getting in with the live streams. So much going on over there. Literally, for a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy, make sure you use promo code FLOCK for all of that, and you can find the link in the description. And if you've already deposited on Underdog Fantasy, I'm sorry, that option's not going to be available for you, but we do have the book available for sale as well on flockfantasy.com. flockfantasy.com. You can find that link as well in the description of this video. But I think that should be, I am very excited. In this video in particular, we're going to be looking at a chapter of that book. This is one of many, and we are going to be looking at historical age cliffs for the running back position. And I couldn't figure out how I was going to write this chapter in the book. I didn't know if we should be focusing in on production. I didn't know if we should be focusing in on value, because a lot of the book you'll find is I'm not necessarily just looking at points per game. Instead, I'm looking at historical dynasty ADP and tracking that to determine trade value and tendencies that we can take advantage of. So I couldn't figure out if we were going to go production or value to see where the fall off actually is at certain age marks with these running backs. So I decided, well, let's do both and then let's compare. So we're going to first break down the fall off in production for these running backs. And then afterwards, I will go through, compare that to where their value falls off in Dynasty. And we can try to come away with an overall conclusion on if we should be selling or buying these players at age 27. And the reason I'm bringing up age 27, that is the mark where y'all know I have come out and I have said, it's the age cliff, it's the age cliff, it's the age cliff. Everybody beware. Once your running backs get to age 27, it is time to sell in Dynasty. I've been saying this for a very long time now, and this has been relatively true for a very long time as well. And to break down what we have seen from the running back position with these age cliffs and the distribution of their production based on their age, I decided to do it a little differently. Instead of going through and looking at the past 15 seasons and just compiling all of those together, I figured we would actually have a much better picture. It's definitely more work, but if we break it down into 4-year chunks. So we are going to go through and look at the last 4 years here from a production standpoint. This is 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Now, Thomas, throw up this chart here, and you're going to see that this is going to be standardized as well. So what we did to standardize this data, because it's going to be impossible. I think we can all agree. It'll be impossible for you to go out there and find the next Frank Gore. It's going to be impossible for you to go and find the next Larry Fitzgerald, the player that's sticking around until they're 35, 36 years old. And I mean, it's literally impossible. I don't think I even have to explain that. So with this large sample that we are looking at, keep in mind, I've broken this down by running back 1, running back 2, running back 3. So we have 36 players across 4 different seasons. Now, I'm no mathematician. Is that 112? Let me get out my little calculator here. I was way off. That's 144 players. Told y'all I'm an idiot. But That's 144 players. So I think it's fair if we go through and take out the outliers. So how we are removing these outliers is I'm going to be removing the 2 oldest running backs from the running back 1 range, the running back 2 range, the running back 3 range, and the 2 youngest running backs from those age groups as well. That way, we're not having to look at Larry Fitzgerald and him throwing off all the data in the wide receiver portion of this book. But nonetheless, if we pull up this chart right here, you are going to see that a ridiculous amount of this production came with running backs that were age 22, 23, 24. That is the peak. And what were we talking about at the beginning of this video? That you actually have that fall off at that age 27 season that you should be going through at least over the last 4 years. If you were taking those running backs once they got to 27 years old, you were taking your David Johnsons, taking your Le'Veon Bell, taking Todd Gurley at like 25 and selling them, you were profiting. I mean, you were going out there and just completely avoiding that cliff. I mean, that running back was running to the age cliff. You actually just sold him the second that he stepped off and maybe hit the reset button with someone like J.K. Dobbins or Cam Akers. And that has been a fantastic game plan over the past 4 years. Now, I want to take a step back because this is going to be the most recent period that we are looking at. And this is affecting our judgment going forward. It was affecting my judgment to the furthest degree. And I will get into why I think my perception was so damn skewed for the longest time. But just to give some overall context of the actual numbers that we're looking at with this graph, I mean, if you're going to be looking at the standardized data, the average running back 1 here was about 23 and a half years old. I mean, if you look at the median age, exactly 23 and a half. The running back 2, about the same. I mean, the median age 24. The running back 3, I mean, the average was about 24 because you had some players on the extreme on the older end getting up to 28, 29 years old, but the median was 23. So you clearly see that the peak production during this time period came from those running backs when they were about 23 or 24 years old. Now, this is important to discuss, and I think that there are a couple different factors at play here, which is why I think I was wrong. I will say that right now. This is the most polarizing and I think the hardest to understand chapter in the book, which is why I'm bringing it up in this video, because I would love for you to go to the comment section and give me your thought process on this. Also, while you're down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. But why I think this data is so skewed is 2 parts. We'll get to the first part right now. Look at that timetable. 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. Was there anything that happened right before this time that would skew this data to telling us that running backs peak at age 23? Would there be anything at all that would happen? I think I may have a hypothesis. Maybe it was that 2017 absurd running back class coming in with Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, James Conner, Aaron Jones, and Chris Carson. 8 top-end running backs that came in right away. Right away. And a lot of these guys were running back 1s their rookie or second year in the league. Now, of course, you should expect once in a blue moon, this is going to happen. Once in a blue moon, you are going to get a class to completely shape the entire landscape of the running back or wide receiver position. I mean, in the wide receiver chapter, we look at something similar to this. But I think this was the first factor that had these running backs skewing extremely young, because we just looked at this 4-year period and the average was what? 23 years old. Let's take a step back now. I want to look at 2014 to 2017. This is right when I first started playing Dynasty. I started playing Dynasty in 2014. And here you actually have a completely different story. I mean, if you compare this to the first chart, here these running backs are peaking at 24, but the running back 1s, you have running back 1s going all the way to 30 years old. You have running back 1s at 28, 29, 27. And what's really interesting, if we're going to compare this to the chart from 2010 to 2013, we'll get there in just 1 second, is it's a very wide distribution. You are not really seeing any peak. You are not really seeing that group from 24, 25, 26 years old to just be at the very top of the league with their production. And if we go over to 2010 through 2013, let's pull this chart up right now. You actually have just that. You have those running backs at 24, 25, 26, 27, clearly at the very top of the NFL with their production. And I think that this is closer to the norm and possibly what we should be expecting going forward. And I have a hypothesis. I would love to know your opinion on this, but I think there were two main factors that have, over the past 8 years, I've been playing Dynasty for, I think this is my 9th season. We're going on a decade now, me playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. I think during this time period, we have had two main factors completely skewing our perception of the running back position, and I have fallen victim to this, and this is why I think this book is so damn valuable in giving us an overall viewpoint of the history of Dynasty Fantasy Football, and maybe we can try to reverse some of these preconceived notions. Because if we are looking at the combination of, remember, we just got done talking about that 2017 running back class. And if you look at 2010 through 2013 compared to 2014 through 2017, I mean, it's very weird that 2010 through 2013 has all those top producers from 24 to 27 years old. I mean, it's a clear graph. It makes a ton of sense if you just sit there and think about it. But I think I have an answer for this. And yet again, it goes back to some draft classes. It goes back to the classes that we saw right before 2014 through 2017. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, what running backs would be 24, 25, 26 during that 2014 to 2017 time period where we should presumably expect these running backs to be peaking? Those classes would be the 2012 class, the 2013 class, and the 2014 class. Those would be the three draft classes that you should expect the majority of the top running backs during that 2014 to 2017 period to come from. I really hope that makes sense if you just look out and have a reasonable timeline. However, during these years, we probably had the worst drought for decent running back prospects compared to any period in the NFL. I mean, you were out there in the El Paso desert dying for a bottle of water, which is those running backs. People were dying for them. They were taking someone like Bishop Sankey over Odell Beckham Jr. They were considering taking him over someone like Mike Evans back in 2014, which is ridiculous to think about now. But if we go through and if we look at these running back prospects, 2012, you got some players going in the first round, but some major bust. You have Trent Richardson, Doug Martin, I will say, back when I played redraft in 2012, 2013. Yeah, Doug Martin was good for a single season, but still, on the whole, definitely a bust. Did not have the longevity in his career. David Wilson, Isaiah Pead, I apologize. LaMichael James, Ronnie Hillman, and Bernard Pierce. Those were all the running backs that were drafted in the top 3 rounds of the NFL draft. Presumably no difference makers at the position. Going to 2013, you have Giovanni Bernard, Le'Veon Bell, Monty Ball, Eddie Lacy, Christine Michael, Niall Davis. So really you get Le'Veon Bell out of this group. You can get Giovanni Bernard in a unique role in his own offense. Yes, a great NFL running back, but nothing special from a fantasy football standpoint. Eddie Lacy, you get 2 strong seasons from Eddie Lacy, essentially. So another horrible season. So far through 2 years, we have 1 difference-making running back in Le'Veon Bell. And then going to 2014, you have Bishop Sankey, Jeremy Hill, Charles Sims, Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde lasted forever in the NFL, but what was really interesting about Carlos Hyde is he never really peaked anywhere. I mean, it was just straight flat line. Yeah, he always had touches. He always had a role, but never anything special in fantasy. He had like 1 run back when he was on the 49ers. I believe it was against the Minnesota Vikings week 1 or week 2 where inside the red zone, he took it the opposite direction. Everybody lost their mind, and he had an insane amount of dynasty value for about a week. But since then, nothing really from Carlos Hyde. Charles Sims, Trey Mason getting replaced after his rookie season. Terrence West, Jerick McKinnon, and Dre Archer. So you were looking at 3 classes where you essentially have one running back of significance coming from. So I think this goes back to what we just saw over the past 4 years. And let's ask ourselves, why did we see a very sharp drop-off in running backs from the 2014 to 2017 period, not producing at age 24, 25, 26, 27? Those running backs were way down compared to 2010 through 2013. And if we carry this over and go to the running backs from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, what is so interesting to look at is the fact that if we ask ourselves, what draft classes would we have gotten those 27, 28, 29-year-old running backs from that we saw? There were no finishers. I mean, in that age group at the top of fantasy football in that time period. Those running back draft classes would have been the 2012, the 2013, and the 2014 classes. So it's really interesting in that I think we have had 2 major factors skewing our perception of the running back position in Dynasty Fantasy Football over the past 8 seasons. Like I said, I've been playing 8-9 years now. I think I was wrong. I think if we go back a little bit further, look at that 2010 through 2013 time period, we can see that running backs, they can make it to 28, 29 years old. That's something that, I mean, looking at that time period in 2010 to 2013, there were just as many running backs that finished as top 12 options. Running backs that finished as running back 2s, running backs that finished as running back 3s, as guys at 23, 24, 25 years old. Now, I mean, if we compare the average age of a running back 1 in that time period, you had them at 25 and a half years old. The average age for running back 2s and 3s was 26. So we're looking at this data. I think we have to ask ourselves, was there something to change the running back position and how it's played dramatically over the past 12 years? Or have we just seen one of the worst stretches of running back prospects in the NFL draft over a 3 to 4 year period than we've ever experienced in the NFL, combined with the 2017 historic draft class? That 2017 class, I will stand by it. I mean, from my knowledge, it's the best running back draft class of all time. I think we have had 2 of those interesting variables collide and really make us think that running backs can't be productive after 27 when that's just not true. So projecting forward, we are going to have so much more information on this trend this upcoming season and in 2023. Because now if we look at that 2017 class of running backs, that was 5 years ago. If we're looking at that class, a lot of these players are turning 27 this upcoming season. You have a lot of these guys right there with that age that they are supposed to drop off based on what we have seen over the past 8 years. My hypothesis is these guys, which I was previously, before I did all this research for the books, I was saying I'm selling them. I was saying, yeah, I'm selling Dalvin Cook, selling Christian McCaffrey, selling Ezekiel Elliott, get them off my roster. Now, I think if you're a contending team and you're going to get a great deal, I mean, I've seen Alvin Kamara going in the 5th, 6th round of Dynasty startup drafts consistently. I've seen him coming this close to us at like the 6'11" in a couple startup drafts. I'm fine taking that price point on Alvin Kamara. Now, if we look at the dynasty value for these running backs, this historical ADP data that we actually pulled for pretty much all the book came from dynastyleaguefootball.com. It's all behind a paywall. This is not an ad. They do not sponsor this channel. They just have Dynasty ADP data that goes all the way back to 2014. They've been the biggest in the game since 2014. So we went through and we compared the production versus the value of these running backs to try to have an understanding of if the Dynasty community has been good at identifying when to buy versus sell these players since 2014. I wish that this data went back beyond then, but sadly, Dynasty just wasn't that popular back in 2010, 2011. It wasn't popular enough to have ADP data. Trust me, I wish we had it, but it looks like Dynasty players have not been good enough at investing into rookie running backs right away. Because with these charts, and there are charts like this for every single position in our Dynasty research book, of course, go deposit $10 on Underdog Fantasy. Go check it out on flockfantasy.com. You can find the links down there in the description. If you're depositing $10 on Underdog Fantasy, make sure you use promo code FLOCK to also get the free month on locals and to get the book and the 100% deposit match. But what we should expect is we should expect that the running backs peak in value significantly before they peak in production, because you want to be paying the highest price for your running back before they have all the production in their career. Because if you're trading for past production, it doesn't help you at all. If you're trading for a running back that was a running back one last year, those points weren't in your starting lineup. You want to trade for them before they're that running back one. So what this chart tells me is, I mean, historically, people have been too slow to bet on those rookie running backs, guys that have, I mean, bulletproof prospect profile, someone like DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, this year, Breece Hall. Y'all know I'm taking Breece Hall at the beginning of the second round to Dynasty startups. I'm willing to take those running backs at 20 years old and just load up on that production throughout their careers. Because at the running back position as well, this is something that we will cover in the book, especially, we'll maybe make a video about this, but we know who the good running backs are going to be. It's very easy. The overall Dynasty community has done a great job at evaluating these rookie running backs and knowing what they are going to be before they get to the NFL level. We know Breece Hall looks like a running back one, every part of his prospect profile. Why not have him valued there right away? Okay, so I think that should be it with this video. I know this was a lot of data. I know I was probably all over the place. Like I said, it's all written out. It's all organized very neatly, as well as 100 other pages with information like this in our Dynasty research book. You can find that if you go deposit $10 on Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK. You can find that on flockfantasy.com. And of course, you can find those links in the description. I would definitely go through the links in the description just so you go to the right place. Thank you again. Hope you drop a like on the video. Hope you subscribe to the channel, and I hope that you have a great day.